guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Paige and this is my open book. In today's video, I'm going to be bringing you my August wrap up. So grab a drink, grab a snack, and let's talk about the books I read in the month of August. I would say overall this was a pretty good reading month for me. So I think it's because this month kind of started off slow, but in the second half of the month I really picked up my reading. Had some really heavy hitters, some definite bangers on this list that are going to be, I think one of them is definitely going to be like competing for my favorite book of the year. So let's start with the first thing I read at the beginning of the month, which was a novella. This is by Kristen Granada called Heart Trick, and this is her stab at a hockey romance, which I was super excited about because I love this author and hockey romance is always fun in my opinion. So I was excited for this to come out, and I will say this wasn't like groundbreaking or anything, but I think it was like pretty good, like middle of the road, especially for a novella. I feel like it's hard for me to give a novella higher than like 3 stars. This one was still really fun. So this one is Fake Dating, and basically the female main character, she is a struggling author, and then you have a hockey player is on a new team, and his PR rep is trying to kind of like fix his image because of some drama that happened in his past, and they end up being neighbors. And he's kind of like the grumpy neighbor that she has to put up with. And they obviously have some animosity towards each other at the beginning because he's not the nicest to her. Not the most welcoming. But they end up having this little interaction that goes viral. So then his PR rep, it wants to kind of maximize that. So they go into a fake dating situation. And it helps her out because it gives her inspiration for her romance book that she's trying to write. Like I said, this was fun. This is definitely like the steamiest thing that Kristen Granada has written, I'm pretty sure. She even said that herself. So those parts are really entertaining. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's anything to write home about, but it was still fun. I am excited for the first full-length novel that's going to be in this series. So the next book that's coming out is an FFM hockey romance. She hasn't posted too many teasers yet, so I don't know as much about that one, but I'm excited for when that comes out for sure. Next, I read The Way I Hate Him by Megan Quinn. You guys know Megan Quinn is one of my favorite authors. She's the person that got me into reading romance as an adult. But I will say there's some of her newer releases that have been a little bit too like cheesy rom-com for me personally. So I was a little nervous about this one, but listen, she delivered. The beginning worried me. This one was pretty slow for me to get into. This is an enemies to lovers situation. So she just got out of a breakup and she is taking a break from college because she was failing all of her classes because she's dealing with her sister dying. And she goes back to her small town and she ends up having to work for this guy who is literally the enemy of her brother. I feel like a lot of romance books, they use the term enemies to lovers very loosely. Like, oh, just because they're not like friendly, you know, that means they're enemies. No, this one, like, it really is like a family rival that if her family were to find out that she had feelings for him, they would probably like disown her. Like, that's how she feels, right? So I feel like that definitely made the tension more believable in my opinion, because I don't usually love enemies to lovers, but in this one I really liked it. Like I said, it took me like, I would say to like the 40% mark to get into it, but then once I got into it, like I was obsessed. I was like, yes please, I need more. The emotions in this one were really high, and the angst and the tension was just like turned all the way up, and I was so invested in these two people getting together. This is also a new small town that Megan Quinn created. It's super cute. It's called Almond Bay, I think, and she has like a whole map drawn up and everything, and you could tell like where she's gonna go with some of the characters already, and I'm really excited for a new small town world that Megan Quinn has created. So I'm really pumped about it, and I ended up giving this one 4 stars. The reason why I didn't give it 5 stars, well, one, like I said, it was kind of slow at the beginning, but the other reason is the way that the hero handled the 3rd act conflict really pissed me off, if I'm being honest. The things that he said to her are like on the verge of unforgivable for me, and I feel like she forgave him too easily. I don't know, maybe I'm just being too picky, but overall I still really enjoyed it. This is probably like one of my favorite newer Megan Quinn releases that have come out, because like I said, some of her newer ones haven't been hitting for me like her old ones did, so this was a pleasant surprise. I wasn't expecting to like this one as much as I did. I also read The Voice of Night by Dean Koontz. If you missed my previous video, I made my husband read a smutty romance book. I'll link that up above. And he made me read a horror book. So I'll link that video down below if you haven't seen it, if you want to see my full thoughts. This was a 2-star read for me. I'm still not converted to a horror reader yet. I'm sure Josh will keep trying, and I will let you know how it goes. If you're someone who likes horror also in addition to romance, let me know, like, how can I find a happy medium for me, okay? Because I want to like try to branch out and go out of my comfort zone, but whenever I try, it's just not the same as reading my good old reliable romance books. So this did not make me a convert. Like, it was okay. I gave it 2 stars. Okay, next up we have Hideaway Hearts by Melanie Harlow. This is the second book in her Cherry Tree Harbor series. I really liked the first one. It was fun. Again, it wasn't something that was like super memorable, but this one, I think the storyline, it definitely packed a stronger punch in my opinion. So in this one, the female main character, Kelly Jo, she's actually a country music star that goes by the name of Pixie Hart, and she needs a break because she's tired of, you know, her record label and her managers and all these people trying to control her and tell her what to do and how to live her life. Taylor Swift vibes, right? So she's gonna go on a vacation all by herself for 2 weeks, and she wants to be like off the grid, middle of nowhere, all by herself. Doesn't want anyone to know where she is. Her brother is a little nervous about that because she is famous, and he's, you know, he's worried for her safety and her security, and she refuses to take a bodyguard with her. So he calls up his friend from the Navy. I think they were in the Navy together. He calls up his friend Xander, who is the male main character of this book. So he used to work for a security company, but now he's trying to start his own business. He's opening a bar in his small town where he's from, Cherry Tree Harbor. And he owes this guy a favor because he saved his life. So he's like, okay, you want me to protect your sister? I will do it. Like, whatever you need, I'm there. So he shows up to protect her even though she is refusing security and bodyguards. He shows up anyway. And it's a one-bed forced proximity bodyguard romance, which, like, that's like the trifecta right there. Like, Melanie Harlow knew what she was doing with this one. It was really good. I actually liked the storyline of this one more than the first book. There's even some consensual non-con in here, which you wouldn't expect that from a small town rom-com, would you? Nope, but Melanie Harlow did that. She did that. This isn't like Cloverleaf Farms level. That's still my favorite series that she ever wrote. I don't think this compares to that, but I did really enjoy it. And I think this one had more substance to the storyline. I do wish that we got more of Xander. I feel like this story focused a lot on the female main character, which isn't a bad thing. Like I said, her storyline was really good. But I do wish I would have gotten more emotional depth and substance from Xander personally. Nothing like super like mind-blowing, but it was still really good. I gave it 4 stars. Next one was a little bit of a disappointment for me. This is Not So Lucky by Trelina Pucci. So the only other book I've read by her was her Tangled in Tinsel. It was like that Christmas reverse harem, like Why Choose romance. So I read that during Christmas, and that one was good, but it was really like just good spicy time. Like that was it. I didn't personally like the romance, or like this, there was like no plot. There was no plot in that book. So, you know, like it was what it was, right? This one actually had a little bit more of a plot. So this one had a kind of like a one-night stand, but then they end up eloping, and then they end up not being able to get an annulment, so they have to like go through like a forced proximity situation and stay together for like 60 days, I think is what the judge makes them do. And she has to like uproot her whole life, stay with this guy until the time is up, so that they can wait until that time has passed before they can get an annulment, I guess. There was also some group activities because he's a football player, and he was out with 2 of his friends, and they were all there the night that they eloped, and I guess they decided to all sleep together, like the 4 of them. But she only married him. I don't know, it was just a weird dynamic for me. I feel like if you're gonna have the group activities, then I want it to be like a Why Choose or reverse harem or something like that, you know what I mean? But it just felt like the female main character was just like having her cake and eating it too, and I didn't understand why she was so upset, because she got to live with a rich guy in the penthouse in a Vegas hotel and avoid all of her responsibilities and have sex with this hot guy and his 2 hot friends, and she just seemed to be a whiny little brat. So I was not a fan. I was not a fan. I did give it 3 stars. Maybe it's more like 2.5 stars. I don't know. I loved the male main character, the football player. I actually really liked his character. And like I said, I think that's why I was like so mad at the female main character, because I'm like, girl, why are you complaining? You're married to a rich football player. You don't have any responsibilities. You can just like lay by the pool all day in Vegas and have group activities with these 3 hot football players. Like, what do you have to complain about exactly? But it's like the whole story, she was just complaining. And she was like being really stubborn. I don't know. Obviously the sex scenes were really spicy and they were good. Yes, I will give her that. Trilina Pucci knows how to write her sex scenes. But I didn't like this love story. I feel like there was no love story, honestly. Yeah, that's my opinion. Not my favorite. Next I read The Antihero by Sarah Kate, and this was a pleasant surprise. So, obviously she's the author who wrote these Salacious Players Club series. Like, everyone has been reading those. Those are good. I feel like they're not very plot heavy though. Like, it's mostly focused on like the spicy scenes, right? And like the exploration of kink between all the characters and the different like sides of kink within the club. So I think that series is really good for what it is. I think it's a good like introductory series into that world, but it's not like super substantial, right? It doesn't have a lot of depth in the emotional aspect of it, right? This one, I was really happy to see something like this from Sarah Kate. So this kind of dives into like, you know, good versus bad, or like moral versus immoral, like kind of focus on religion, but more so the male main character, his father is a pastor, like one of those famous like huge church, multi-million-dollar corporation, like one of those kinds of guys, right? So he's obviously, you know, been forced by his father to kind of like fit that mold of the perfect son so he can follow in his footsteps, and he like writes all of his sermons for him, and he's like the dedicated son, the rule follower, like he never veers from the plan. And he finds out that his dad is not as perfect as he thought he was, and it really messes with him. And this is his way of getting revenge on his father and trying to put him in his place for all of the crappy stuff that he did to his family. So honestly, good for him. I'm happy that Adam went through the journey that he went through, and I think that Sarah Kate did a really good job of showing what that must feel like for someone like Adam. And like I said, it wasn't super religious, so if you're someone who is religious, I don't think you're going to be offended by it by any means, because it's like I said, it's more so about the controlling father that he had, and like the way that his father used religion to like meet his own agenda. It's not like this book is anti-religion or anything like that. So I personally don't think it would be a problem if you're someone who is religious, but that's just my opinion. Obviously, I'm not the most religious person either, so maybe I'm a little bit biased. But I thought it was really well done, and I'm glad that she wrote something with more depth and substance to it. Like, don't get me wrong, I love her Salacious Players Club series. That's one of my favorites. And I love the way that she wrote those books. But it was nice to see her like level up and like take it up a notch and give something more besides what we already seen from her. So I was excited about that. I did find it a little bit short. I wish that the story would have been a little bit more like developed and like a little bit longer, because I feel like I didn't get enough of the female main character. Her name was Sage. I feel like I wanted more of her personality in it. It focused a lot on Adam, which was great. I loved that. But I also like, I didn't really understand why they had such a strong connection with each other. Like, was it just an insta love thing? But then like, it didn't seem like it was. So I wanted to know more about like, you know, how they would be a strong connection in the long run. Like, I understood why they liked each other now, but I don't know. I think that was the part that was lacking for me. So I gave this 4 stars instead of 5 stars. But I'm very intrigued to see how she goes with this series, because I think this is a great thing that she's doing, and I'm excited about it. Now this is the only physical book I read in the month of August. Everything else I read was an ebook, which is crazy. So this is The Nanny by Lana Ferguson. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. This was so good. This was so good. This was almost a 5-star read for me. I think I gave this like 4.5 stars. Like, it's like almost perfect, okay? Almost perfect. I thought this was just gonna be like a smutty good time, okay? I knew that this was like a nanny romance, obviously based on the title, but she used to have an OnlyFans, and he was like her biggest fan on there. But then something happened. He basically like ghosted her on the app, so she like ended it. and she ends up working as his nanny. And after working for him for a little bit, she finds out who he is, but he doesn't know that it's her because she always like wore a mask and like kept her face out of frame. So could you imagine? Like, that's crazy. That's crazy. Obviously the steamy parts were good, and I love how there are like little flashbacks. Like, she'll include like little text messages, or you know, like she'll include pages like this where it's like flashbacks to how they interacted with each other on her OnlyFans account. The whole time you're just like waiting for it to crash and burn, okay? But obviously you don't want it to, because they're so good together and you really want them to be together. Like, he definitely needs someone like her in his life, and she needs someone like him in her life, and obviously his daughter is also a huge part of the story. I love the relationship that the female main character has with his daughter. I love that. And there's just like really good side characters in here too. Like the female main character, her best friend is like this older lady that used to be her neighbor, and she's a trip. And then you have the aunt of his daughter who like causes some drama, but like you can tell she also has like a backstory that you want to know more about. So yeah, I ended up really enjoying this one. And I think my favorite thing about this book is that there is a third act breakup, but not in the way that you think. So obviously I'm not going to spoil anything, but one thing I appreciate about this is I feel like, unfortunately, like in the Megan Quinn book, for example, the one I talked about earlier in this video, he was just so immature, and like the way that he handled it, he just gave up so easily, and he was just like so disrespectful to her in the moment because he was just so like blinded by his short-term emotions instead of thinking about it in the long term and thinking about it logically. And I just didn't think it was a mature way to handle a conflict like that. However, this book is the epitome of the male main character being so mature and level-headed and just so devoted to the female main character. He's like, I don't care. Like, whatever happens, we will work through it. Like, this is not a deal breaker for me. I will find a way to make it work. So I love that. We love a man who knows what he wants and will stop at nothing to get it. Yeah, this was really good. The only reason why I didn't give this 5 stars is just because the female main character, the way she handles the conflict is not ideal. Like, it makes sense, but like it still wasn't my personal favorite. And I don't know how, I feel like this is memorable for now, but I don't know if this is like top tier level, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if this is the kind of book that will like stand the test of time. So that's why I was hesitant to give it a full 5 stars, but it's really close. It's really close. I highly recommend this one. Next up we have Cruel Seduction by Katie Robert. This is book number 5 in her Dark Olympus series. Basically like a Greek mythology retelling, right? I rated this on Goodreads as 3.5. I might change it. I don't know, this is a tough one for me because I love what Katie Robert did with this world that she has created, this alternate like Greek mythology pantheon kind of world where you have like the 13 who are in power, and then I don't know, I just love the new dynamic that she created. I think it's super creative and super unique, and I love what she's done with this series overall. So there was great plot in this book, so that's why I rated it higher than I think I probably should have, if I'm being honest. The only thing I didn't like, and unfortunately it's the biggest thing, is the romance part of it. I was not a fan. So this is supposed to be like an open poly not relationship. So basically you have Aphrodite. She is in a marriage of convenience with Hephaestus because of political reasons, okay? Because I don't want to spoil anything. But they hate each other. Now, Aphrodite used to be with Adonis, but obviously they couldn't be together in the long term, and Aphrodite knew that. Like, she kind of knew that she would always have to be in like an arranged marriage of some kind. She never let herself indulge the idea of being with someone that she actually loved. So she, even though she had a great relationship with Adonis, she knew that it would never develop into a marriage. But obviously Adonis was more romantic than her in that way, so obviously he's really heartbroken about the fact that he knows that she is off limits now, basically. That's really hard for him. Then you have Hephaestus, who he's adopted, basically, and his adopted sister, they got adopted at the same time. They were in foster care together, so they're really close. They're like best friends. So because Hephaestus and Aphrodite hate each other, they decide to get back at each other by fooling around with the other person's like close person. It's really confusing. Hephaestus ends up spending time with Adonis to try and use it against Aphrodite, but then he develops feelings for Adonis, and you have like those two, and then you have Aphrodite doing the same thing with Pandora. That's Hephaestus's best friend. And then, but then Aphrodite and Hephaestus are also still sleeping together and like kind of having like hate sex with each other. And then there's even a scene where Adonis, Aphrodite, and Hephaestus all sleep together. And then Pandora's just like on the side fooling around with Aphrodite. I don't know. Like I said, I think it could have worked, but I think that this book was just too short. So for me, it was hard to find the connections believable and to understand how these people would work in an open poly-dot relationship. I feel like that's where the disconnect was for me. Like, yes, I saw the chemistry with Adonis and Aphrodite. Like, I saw that. I was heartbroken that they couldn't be together at first. And obviously I saw the chemistry with Hephaestus and Adonis. And I saw a little bit of chemistry with Aphrodite and Pandora, but I think it was more so just Aphrodite thinking that Pandora was pretty. So I don't know about how fulfilling that would be in the long term, but whatever. I don't know. And obviously, like, when they were all together, there's like one scene where they're all together, like cooking breakfast or something. And like, yeah, that was cute, but like, it just didn't hit for me. Like, it just didn't make sense. So I personally felt this one was disappointing compared to the other books in the series, just because the romance part I was not sold on, and it's a romance book. So obviously I was really looking forward to that being a great part of the story, and it just wasn't. It just fell short. Then we finally got a 5-star read. We have Pucking Wild by Emily Rath. I didn't read this book until like the 23rd of August. So up until the 23rd of August, I had not had a 5-star read, and I was really concerned. But thankfully, Emily Rath saved the day. This is a hockey romance. This is the second book in her Pucking Around, or no, Jacksonville Ray series, I think is what it's called. So this follows a different player in the hockey team. His name is Ryan, and he's younger than the female main character, Tessa. And Tess is the best friend of the female main character in the first book. She's going through a very toxic divorce, and Ryan Langley is just the most supportive, amazing book boyfriend ever. He's definitely my favorite book boyfriend right now. It's gonna be hard to compete with that, honestly. Just like the way that he was there for her, and the way he understood her, and just like the way they connected on like such a spiritual, soulful way. Like, I was not expecting that. I really wasn't. It just really felt like they were meant to be together. Like, their souls, like, they are soulmates for sure. I could have included them in my soulmates video, honestly, because I was totally a believer in their love story, and I just love them together so much. Like, Tess totally deserves someone as amazing as Ryan, and vice versa. Obviously Ryan deserves love too, but you know what I mean. Tess is going through such a hard time, and I love that Ryan was there to help her through it. And yeah, I also love that Tess was like more experienced in the bedroom than Ryan, and those scenes were really hot. Her teaching him things, we love that. We love that. We love a female main character who knows what she wants in the bedroom. Okay, that's all I'm saying. Yeah, they're honestly like the perfect couple. I was obsessed. I was obsessed. At this point in the month, I was on a roll with the 5-star reads. Okay, next up I read Done and Dusted by Lila Sage, and I ended up including this in my soulmate video, so I won't go into too much detail. This is a small town cowboy, cowgirl romance. She's a horse rider coming back to her small town, and the male main character is her brother's best friend. So there's some tension there, some forbiddenness, and then she's going through a rough time. He helps her through it. Are you sensing a theme? Their connection was just so sweet and so like tender and long lasting, and I just really felt the love between these two characters, and I love it. Honestly, like, this is better than the Chestnut Spring series, in my opinion. I said it. I think Lila Sage is better than Elsie Silver. Sorry, not sorry. I love Elsie Silver, don't get me wrong, but Lila Sage, she's the queen of small town romance in my opinion right now. Like, she did it. She did it perfectly. She did it perfectly. Plus, the dirty talk in this one had me blushing. That's how you know. Next up, I read That First Date by Jen McMahon, and this is her second book, and this is her second book ever. So her first book that came out a few months ago, That First Night, I think it was called. That one I thought was okay, but like you could definitely tell it was her debut novel. Like, I think that there were parts of it that I think were a bit like a bit cheesy and silly. I feel like she was just trying to like be trendy at the time. But this one I think will definitely is more like classic romance. So this is a fake fiance romance. So not just fake dating, fake fiance. And Avery is the female main character. She's a spitfire and she's not the kind of person to be tied down in a relationship. She's got daddy issues like a lot of people do, but part of it is because like her dad like left her and her mom, so she's only seen her mom as an independent woman, so she thinks that's what she has to be. So she's kind of like written off serious relationships, but Mark is her new boss. She's his assistant and he needs to pretend like he is engaged so that the owner of his company will believe that he's a family man who has a future and he will want to give the business to him. So Mark goes to Avery with this proposition and they end up having this fake engagement. And you could tell that they were attracted to each other beforehand, but obviously they never indulged in it. They never crossed that line. One, because she works for him, and two, because his brother is married to her best friend. So I think they also don't want the drama in their friend group. But they do have some serious chemistry and it shows. Jen McMahon writes really good spicy scenes. So she definitely did that in the first book, and in this book she totally kept that trend. But what I liked more about this one is I felt a much deeper emotional connection between the characters this time. I think I gave that first night 3 stars. This one I gave 4 stars, so hopefully the next one she comes out with will be a 5-star. We'll see. I have high hopes for her. She definitely has a lot of potential as a new author, so if you haven't checked her out yet, you definitely should. Next up, I read The Good Girl by Nikki Sloan. This is book number 5 in her Nashville Neighborhood series. This might be the final one. I don't know. She didn't really tease like another book in this series, so I think this might be the end of the series for her. The male main character, Preston, he's actually the side character from book 1 in this series. So in book 1, his ex starts dating his dad. So he's obviously got a traumatic past with that. Like, watching your ex leave you for your father is kind of weird, but you know, at the time, I think that's one thing that I loved is Preston knew that he was kind of a jerk back then. Like, he does not like the person that he was back at the beginning of the series, and he talks about that. You know, he talks about how, you know, he's not proud of who he was back then, but that he's, you know, done work on himself and he's really trying to be a better person now. So I love seeing that development in his character, because I was a little worried about having him as the hero in this final book, because like obviously you're not really taught to love Preston in the rest of the books. But I really like that aspect of it. He is starting to develop feelings for his best friend's sister. So Preston's starting to fall for Sydney. They have feelings. They actually share a kiss at a party. But Colin, Preston's best friend, doesn't know that. He tells Preston, stay away from my sister. Like, you are off limits, or she is off limits. You are not to interact with her at all. Like, I don't want you barking up that tree. Because obviously Colin knows Preston's past, and Colin knows that Preston wasn't always the best guy to the females in his life before. So obviously Colin doesn't want his sister to have to deal with that, which is understandable, but honestly Colin is totally a jerk. He was the mailman character in The Frat Boy. If you read that part of this series, he wasn't my favorite, and this totally perpetuates that. I hate Colin. But either way, Nikki Sloan still did a really great job with this romance. Even though Sydney is off limits, she goes to Preston during, like, after some drama with her family, and she has always been the good girl. She has done everything her parents have asked her to, especially because her brother, Colin, in the last book, shows that he was, like, totally ostracized from his family because he decided to be a porn star or whatever. Freaking Colin, man. I hate Colin. Anyway, this book, I feel like Nikki Sloan wrote this for every recovering people pleaser, okay? Because Sydney is that. Sydney has spent her whole life being the perfect daughter, doing everything she was supposed to do, going to college even though she didn't want to. She really wants to be a chef, but her parents basically pressured into going to college anyway, so she did it. But now her parents are telling her, like, oh yeah, like we don't want you to be a chef. Like, we need you to stay in college. And Sydney's like, no, that was part of the deal. I've done everything you've asked of me, and the fact that you're like disappointed in me right now is ridiculous, and I don't want to be a part of this anymore. So she starts to fight back, and she starts to rebel a little bit, and she goes to Preston so he can teach her how to be bad. Listen, I didn't think, like, I knew I would find it enjoyable because Nikki Sloan is a great writer and she does really good character development and she does really good spicy scenes. Like, I knew I would at least get that out of it, right? But I actually felt a very strong emotional connection to both of these characters. Like I said, I love seeing Preston grow in his maturity and his emotional development, and just like, you know, his self-reflection was really inspiring. So I love that, and I love how like protective he was of Sydney, and just like the way he took care of her was super sweet. And I love how he believed in her dreams when nobody else would. You know, he was the first person to ask her, what do you want? And that was really powerful. And then you've got Sydney, who I totally relate to as a recovering people pleaser, you know, but you know, she's going through a time now where she's like, well, dang, what do I want? You know, no one's ever asked me that before. If you're, you know, into praise, this would be a good one for you too, if you know what I mean. Yeah, I really like this one. I gave it 5 stars, which I was not expecting. I knew I would like it, but I didn't know I would love it like I did. So definitely pick this one up if you haven't. This is by far my favorite of this whole series, and I've thoroughly enjoyed other books in the series. Like, I love The Architect. That was a cool dynamic of like a male-female relationship. And then you've got The Pool Boy, which is a reverse age gap. Like, that one was really good too. But this one totally blew me away and took me by surprise. This is definitely my favorite of the series. Probably my favorite Nikki Sloan book, period. Yeah, I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna go there. The last book I had to squeeze in, We Saved the Best for Last. I read this literally like on the last day of August because I could not put it down when it came out on the 30th. This is by Nikki Castle. This is One Last Shot. This is part of her Fight Club, or Fight, I keep wanting to say Fight Club. This is part of her Fight Game series, which is an MMA series. So like all the male main characters and one of the female main characters. They're MMA fighters that all go to the same like UFC style gym together, so kind of like found family vibes. This book was really emotional and monumental for me, if I'm being honest. This is so close to things that me and my loved ones have experienced in our lives. So I felt this like to my core, like what the characters were going through. Like, I felt it. Like, I was crying. I had to read part of this book in, like, I was waiting for my husband and the doctor, and people probably looked at me like I was crazy because I'm just sitting there on my Kindle like crying my eyes out with this book. Yeah, anyway, I'm gonna stop rambling. Let me tell you what it's about. We have our male main character, Kane, who he's like the epitome of the grump, okay? Like, he has a lot of anger because of a very traumatic past that he went through as a kid, and he's still kind of like trying to get out of that world, out of that lifestyle. So he goes to the gym that everybody else does, the UFC MMA gym, but he truly goes there because he needs to fight. Like, that's really the only way that he's been able to deal with his anger issues, is by fighting. And it's not the healthiest, but that's just where we're at the way the story starts, right? Then you have someone new in town. Her name is Isabella. She's a retired ballet dancer, and something traumatic also happened to her, you know, to make her step away from ballet altogether. So she's trying to start over in a new town, and they could not be more opposite. Like, he had to be on his own basically from when he was born, whereas Isabella, she has had everything handed to her. Everyone is always taking care of her. She's never had to do anything for herself, but she is choosing to do everything by herself now. Like, she's like, no, I want to live by myself. I want to get a job. I want to learn how to do my own laundry. I want to do my own dishes. I want to learn how to cook for myself. You know, I want to learn how to drive myself places, because all these things she never got to do because people always did it for her. I just love the dichotomy of their personalities. Like, yes, obviously opposites attract is always funny because, you know, there might be like funny disagreements or whatever, but no, the way Nikki Castle did opposites attract is the way it's supposed to be. Like I said, the dichotomy of their personalities was just so amazing. You know, like, he's learning how to lean on other people, and then she's learning how to stand up on her own. So it's just interesting to see, you know, those two things and how they kind of go against each other but also balance each other at the same time. It was just really refreshing. Kane has a lot to work through. Isabella kind of helps him through that, you know, like, she's the only one who he talks to, like, period. Like, if it weren't for Isabella, he would not say a word all day. It's just beautiful the way that their connection is able to bring them both to such higher places in their lives. and it just really helps them to like not just connect to each other but also connect to who they are as a person and to who they can be. You know, they really want to be the best versions of themselves so they can be better for each other, and I just love that. I don't even think I could describe to you how much this book meant to me, just because I personally found it very relatable, like I said, to the things that me and the people close to me have been through. The way Nikki Castle did it is just chef's kiss. Like, I wish I could like write her a letter, like personally thanking her for writing this book, because this will definitely, I know it's early in the year. We still got, what, like 5 months left of the year? September, October, November, December. Okay, only 4 months left of the year. And I've read so many great books this year, but honestly, because of the impact this story had on me mentally and emotionally and spiritually, like, this book is probably gonna be my favorite book of the year. Like I said, I know that's a bold statement. Like I said, I don't even know how to put into words what kind of effect this book had on me. But if you haven't read anything by Nikki Castle yet, I'm begging you, please read this series so you can experience their love story, because it is unlike anything else I've ever read. And Nikki Castle was committed, and it really shows. It really shows. This was so powerful that you cannot go the rest of your life without experiencing this. Just trust me on that. All right, that's gonna be it for today's video, and I hope that you found some recommendations that are gonna work for you as well. Comment down below what's your favorite book that you read in the month of August. Be sure to give this video a like and hit that subscribe button, and I will see you next week with another video. Bye guys.